I wanted to ask you, Zeke, do you think today's athletes are a lot conscious socially than they should, or than they should be?
No, I think they should even be more, because society right now demands that.
Right.
Particularly with the racial environment that we're living in today. When you look at where I came from in terms of the 60s and the 70s, and my mother marched with Martin Luther King. She worked with Fred Hampton when he came into the neighborhood. And we were always taught, you know, each one teach one. And it was our responsibility to pass on to the next generation what being socially conscious was all about. Regardless of basketball, just you as a human being, the way you treat your fellow man. Even the music was talking about, you know, I can still remember Marvin Gaye singing, "Brother, brother." I mean, it was all about loving your brother. It was all about, you know, mercy, mercy me, what this world is coming to. The music was speaking to that. And basketball became a part of it. But when you look at Muhammad Ali and you look at, you know, Kareem, Lou Alcindor, then you look at Bill Russell, you know.
Jim Brown.
What they were going through as professional athletes in the 60s and 70s in a racially torn world, they stood up and they spoke out, not for themselves, but for a generation. And they paid a heavy price for guys like you and us to be sitting here on television today. You know, Muhammad Ali, in this country, he wasn't always loved.
No.
You know, not until the end, you know, when he couldn't talk anymore, by the way. But when he was speaking up, you know, the things that he was talking about, you know, it was about social conscience. It was about race. It was about moving our country forward. It was about being educated. And, you know, our athletes today, they do have a social responsibility. And whether you choose to be a role model or not, because of the historical relevance of what has happened in this country with African Americans, being on a platform, being on television, being on vinyl, being, you know, having a voice to speak, it's imperative that you speak out and you reach back and you bring the next generation forward. And if you can't do that with your voice, you definitely have to do that with your actions.
Right.
I was going to ask you, with some of the young players not being so vocal, and I'm just being honest here, a young one would ask himself, how do I, you know, contribute, or what are some different ways in contributing and not being so voiceful if I don't have that boldness of a personality, you know, to speak out. You know, Tayshaun's very, you know, introverted into himself, but if you actually get to talk to him, he's very, 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 very bright and has a lot to say. He's not going to push the issue to say things. You know, a lot of our young guys, they have something to say, just don't know how to say it, don't know what in context that is relative, don't know when to say what they're saying. And what's most important, I think a lot of these young guys are worried about what the rebuttal is from what they're saying. And that's when you say these older players stood up, made a stance for the future. You know, the Bill Russells, the Lou Alcindors, who was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Jim Browns, who stopped football at 8 years. He didn't even, you know, because of the consciousness, all this so that we can have a future. Then y'all paved it for us so that we can have, and this being paved. My question in all of this is, when you see it, and you're at the 2017, 2018 parts of it, and you're asking yourself, what part can I play? How are different ways versus your voice? I know we have social platforms. Just want to hear some of y'all ideas of how can you be socially conscious and not be that voice, or not, if I'm not so, you know, outspoken like Isiah Thomas or some of those, you know, Muhammad Ali and some of those both. So what other ways?
I think Zeke kind of hit it on the money as he started to, you know, end what he was saying. You know, some athletes are not very vocal, some are. But I think at the end of the day, first off, you go out and let your play do the talking.
Right.
You know, you just go out and let your play do the talking.
Speaks for you, boy.
Let your play speak for itself. And anything that you can add above and beyond that, it can do wonders.
Right.
You know, we got so many kids that are watching us, looking up to us and stuff like that. And then you add the social medias of the world and everything. So everything is so zoomed in nowadays that you have to be so conscious of what you're doing and making sure that when you're out there on the court, or whether you're in communities or whatever it may be, that you're doing the right things all the time.
Right.
I think one thing that is really beneficial for Detroit, you know, as sad as I am for the Palace to be moving downtown, those players could get in those schools down there, get in the inner city schools.
Philanthropy of all of it.
You know, all those kids down there who are looking up to us that don't really have much, not a lot to look forward to. I think those guys could get in those schools a lot more and do a lot of things in that community, so that'll kind of uplift and bring things. So that's just one of the examples that I think that could.
You know, the most powerful thing that we all can do as role models is to show up, and to go back home and let those little kids see you. I go back to Detroit, I go back to Chicago, and I just let them see me. I let them touch me, because those kids need to see the difference between a role model, an educated man, a professional person, and the difference between someone who's not. And you have to stand on the corner so they can see the difference. You don't need to do anything else other than let Mrs. Johnson or Mrs. Smith see you, and she can say, Tayshaun, can you say hello to Lil Junior for me? And Lil Junior can look up and say, hey, Tayshaun, how you doing? And all you got to do is say, hey, man, how you doing in school?
No question.
You know, those words, those showing up.
Goes a long way.
It lasts forever. And you don't have to do anything but be that. But when you get separated from your community, and you get separated from the neighborhood, and you get separated from the block that you grew up on, and you can't even go back on your block and get love and give love, then brother, you in the wrong place.
And another thing that he pointed that's so perfect, man, when I do basketball camps and stuff like that, you know, a lot of people hold basketball camps and they just show up for an hour and leave, yada yada. One thing I made real imperative and important is I'm gonna be there from the start of camp to the end of camp, because the most important thing about the camp is for you to interact with the kids. And I know how you are, man. You jump into drills right away with the kid, you know, just to kind of explain and give them detail and stuff like that, because just those little things that we might not think is something that's big for them is very huge and monumental for them.
We got living examples working with us every day. And I didn't know this, but I look at Chris Webber, I look at Steve Smith, I listened to a Jalen Rose, and I didn't know when they was little shorties growing up. I was just, you know, doing the camp and everything else. But now that I'm working with those guys, and they helping me, they're like, no, Zeke, don't say that. You know, they looking out for me. See Webb looking out, Steve Smith. I mean, it's like, I wouldn't be sitting here like, you know, and I wouldn't have been here this long had those guys not been giving it back. So just showing up in their life and just being just a nice dude, and to hear them talk about it now, you know, it brings tears to my eyes, because I really wasn't trying to do anything but just be a good dude. That's it. And all you need to do is just go home and be a good dude.
Do you think the players got the appetites or the desire to be able or to be like this? I know LeBron does a lot. You don't hear too much about the philanthropy, because I think a lot of guys are private with their stuff. But do you think, do you get a sense from the players that the desire to be philanthropists or to go back and be more than just a player, or to, you know, put your print or your mark on the philanthropy part? You think that, do you feel like there's a desire for players to do that these days?
I'm not sure, because I think more so players today are just worried about their own brand, in the sense of
being liked.
Yeah, just being liked in what they're doing on the court. As
they use philanthropy as a brand.
Exactly. As just you know, try to do everything. They just worried about their own brand, as not worried about everything collective as a whole. You know, reaching out, helping, teaching, and stuff like, you know, what you brought out with LeBron. I mean, you see LeBron doing everything. They put him on a whole bunch of stuff, what he doing in the city of Akron and all that kind of stuff, getting kids scholarships and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he's opened up so many doors, and he's used the game of basketball to do it. So definitely big shout out to LeBron, what he's doing.
Well, I'd just like to think, Zeke, you got to know that you are the head of all of this, and we are using the examples of our great players that come before us as examples to be great philanthropists. And I think the onus got to be pushed on players to do more, because we can do more. Area 21, we in here with the great Isiah Thomas, the great Tayshaun Prince. We in here. Real stuff today, boy. Ooh, Lord have mercy.